Welcome to Boardroom Scriptures, where we break down Bible stories and extract real business, leadership, and life strategies, especially for our Nigerian reality. Because not every separation is failure, sometimes it is strategy. Today's conversation, Abraham and Lot, or better put, when is it time to walk away from a partnership, even when there is no fight? See you on the other side. We're looking at the story of Abraham and Lot when growth forces separation. And you find our text there in Genesis chapter 13 of the Bible, the entire book of Genesis. So as a bit of a background, Lot was Abraham's nephew, right? Abraham's older brother's son was Lot. So when Abraham was going to leave, right, according to the commandment of the Lord, he took Lot along with him. So we're going to the relatable narration for a bit. Follow very quickly in a nutshell. Just paraphrasing. Abraham leaves his homeland, following God's direction, and Lot, his nephew, goes with him. At the beginning, it works. They move together, they grow together, they prosper together. Then something happens. Growth. They begin to grow. Remember we said they grew together. Growth. They had more cattle. Abraham had his own cattle. Lot had his own cattle. They had more servants. Abraham had his own servants. Lot had his own servants. And they had more resources. And it got to a point, the place became too small for them. Because now you had a very large crowd, a large family. Abraham's family, Lot's family, Abraham's people, Lot's people. And they were always quarreling. Abraham's people were quarreling with Lot's people again and again. And the strife began. And not because it was between Abraham and Lot directly. Abraham and Lot had no issue, right? They had no issue. But their teams, the herdsmen started clashing. The space became limited. Tension rises. And then it gets more interesting, because at this point, Abraham senses that, look, it's better for the sake of peace. Let's see how we can, handle this. And Abraham calls Lot and says, let there be no strife between us. Then he does something very, very unusual, right? He gives Lot the first choice. He says, Lot, you know what? I don't want any problem. The land is before both of us. It's before you. Take anything you want. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left. When the Bible says Abraham was a friend of God, this is one of the things I think, one of the other actions or attributes that endeared Abraham so much to God. Because how would you do? Abraham was the master. Abraham owned it. Abraham brought Lot. Lot was his boy. But yet, when it was time to choose, he gave Lot the right to choose first. That took a lot of humility. That was the life of a peace-loving man, right? Now, look at the land. Choose where you want to go. Abraham gave Lot that blank check. Now, let's take a pause here. If you look at it, Abraham is the senior. Abraham is the leader. Abraham is the one with the covenant. Yet, he gave the younger man priority. He did not look at his position, his title, his relevance. Because just like when maybe siblings are sharing stuff, typically you always expect that the older one will take more. Like when we were kids, back then, we were three of us, right? My older brother gets the bigger share. Then I get the second share. Then my younger brother gets the third share. Just, in line with our position, and all that. Abraham did not look at any of those things. This is what should typically happen. But Abraham was willing to allow Lot to go first. And of course, Lot looked at it and chose what the fertile land near Sodom. It looks green, well-watered, promising. So Lot himself, in Yoruba parlance, we always assume that, even if an adult gives you that kind of option, you will say, no, please, sir, you choose first. But Lot did not mind. He said, okay, you've given me the choice. And he looked at the best areas and he took it for himself. And Abraham did not mind because, of course, Abraham was the one who gave that option, right? So immediately, Abraham now stayed back with what seemed less attractive. But remember, it's the blessing of the Lord that maketh rich. No matter where you are, if the blessing of the Lord comes upon your little, it will become big. So they separate, no fight, no insult, just direction. But over time, Lot's environment begins to affect him, while Abraham's environment continued to grow. Abraham continues to grow steadily, but the other side happened to Lot. But we're not looking into all that today. We'll be back for the business breakdown. 7 points. Thank you. Right, and welcome back. So let's take it from the business breakdown. Remember, we're looking at the story of Abraham and Lot when growth forces separation. And I'm going to be giving 7 points as usual. The first point here today is growth can cause friction. Growth can cause friction. This is a given. So, at the beginning, a partnership, a business relationship, a work relationship can be very easy, very smooth. Everything is fresh, especially when you just go into a new engagement, you just go into a new workplace. You're the golden, everybody wants to treat you special because you just joined, right? But over time, you begin to see the true colors. It's normal. Likewise, in every partnership, when you start the partnership, everything looks juicy, everything looks beautiful until cracks begin to show. Sometimes it's from familiarity. Sometimes it becomes from getting too used to a particular person, a particular thing. Those cracks begin to show. It's normal in every relationship, even in the marriage, right? When people just get married, everything looks so beautiful. But over time, it's just growth. As you grow, things begin to change. You begin to have different or new realities that you need to also adjust into accordingly, right? So partnerships can be easy at the beginning, small scale, less pressure. But as things grow, resources begin to tighten, egos begin to emerge. That's when you see someone say, "So I do more. I'm the one who did the most of this thing. I built this company. I brought most of the clients in." How many clients? You begin to see those kind of things. It happens, right? In partnerships. Then, of course, systems get tested. Whatever system you've had in place, at that point, it gets tested. You won't see a lot of these things at the beginning, but over time, you begin to notice a lot of these things. And it takes a lot of wisdom to be able to handle such situations. What is the lesson from this first point? The lesson from here is that not all conflicts means something is wrong. Sometimes it means something is expanding. You have a lot of conflict, especially as a business grows, as a partnership grows, as a relationship grows. A lot. You begin to see things you were not seeing before. You begin to see some flaws here and there, some things you're not very comfortable with, even though you signed a contract, even though you have an agreement in place. A few things begin to pop their heads that you never saw from the beginning. Most of the time, in fact, it's only God that can actually see the end from the beginning. Most times, we cannot see the end from the beginning. We can only see the beginning and just assume. Most of the time, later on, there are a lot of things that will happen that you never actually envisage, no matter how much you plan for a business. So likewise, it's very important to understand that when this conflict happens, it doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong. It might just mean that something is expanding, things are getting bigger, and of course, there are more expectations. And as you build those expectations, things begin to change. Now we go to the second point. Team conflict is a warning sign. Team conflict is a warning sign. Now, the issue here was not about Abraham versus Lot. Remember, it was not Abraham and Lot. Abraham and Lot were cordial. They were fantastic together. But then their teams, it was their teams. Team A versus Team B. It's either one person wants to do better, and as you know, we live in a competitive world, the business environment everywhere. When you have separate teams, they will always want to outshine each other. They will always want to outdo each other. And as a result, we have conflicts. In business today, we have staff conflicts. We have misalignment in operations. We have the case of what the boss said versus what is being done. We have what the structure says versus what is being done. We have what the agreement says versus what is being done. Things like this happen, right? We have misalignments in operations. We have different management styles. You have this partner leading you today. Tomorrow, another partner comes in because maybe that partner leaves, or that partner is transferred to another department. Another partner comes who doesn't have the same style. And because naturally, people are resistant to change. When change comes, people naturally will resist it because they are not comfortable. They are used to a particular system. So when something new comes, it takes a bit of time for people to get adjusted to it. So these things can definitely always cause conflicts, especially when you have different management styles. You're used to this person manager style, and now you have a new manager who has a different style. Of course, there would naturally be a bit of of conflict in the process. And what's the lesson from this one? If you ignore team level tension, it will eventually affect leadership. What it means basically is that if there's tension at team level, find a way to sort it out quickly before it degenerates or extends into the leadership. If you don't solve it at that little stage when it's just between the teams, it can go as far as leadership, where you find partners or team leaders fighting each other over things that their teams where maybe matters between their teams, and the team leaders find themselves quarreling, which was not originally the plan, but because there was some misunderstanding or misalignment between their teams, this begins to happen. Now we look at the third point here. It says peace is more valuable than position. Very important. As much as possible, you want to maintain peace in the business environment. Once there is no peace, things begin to fall through the cracks. Things begin to go wrong. Once there is no peace, things begin to go wrong in the business environment. As much as possible, you want to ensure that Yes, you can't satisfy everybody, but you want to do the best you can, right? To make sure, okay, at least I was able to do the best I can. If the person is still not satisfied, then you know you've done your best. Abraham, in this case, had the right to choose first. Of course, he was older, he was a leader, he was the one who brought Lot along in the first place. So he had the right to choose first, but he didn't. Rather, he chose peace over control. One of the major challenges in the workplace or in the boardroom or in any relationships, business, partnerships, and all that is control. That power of control. Who is in charge? Who wants to rule? Who wants to be the one calling the shots? And sometimes it might just be better to just, for the sake of peace, you could cede some of your control just for the sake of peace sometimes. And that's exactly what Abraham did. In Nigeria today, many people fight to prove a point. The fight to assert authority, the fight to win, just to ensure that yes, and at the end of everything, the victory is ephemeral because you can't really place any substance over it. Because what was the sacrifice? What was the cost of that win? How many relationships did you burn? How many bridges did you burn? How many hearts did you bruise in the name of trying to win or trying to assert your authority or trying to prove your point? What is the lesson from this particular point? You can win an argument and lose the relationship. As much as possible, it's better to lose the argument and retain that relationship if it's very important to you than win the argument at the expense of the relationship. Now we go to the fourth point. Not every opportunity that looks good is good. You know, the Bible says something in the book of Proverbs. It says there's a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof is death. Likewise, it's not every opportunity that looks good is actually good. Some of the opportunities are actually, they are sugar coated, but inside is something else. So you want to be very, very careful before you jump into any opportunity. And we take the fifth point now. Separation is not always failure, like we said at the beginning of this particular episode, right? In this case now, sometimes we think, oh, because you have a business relationship, a business partnership, and it failed. And because of that, you think, oh, it was failure. Or maybe some things didn't go well and you had to cancel the contract or terminate the agreement or have to let go, resign that appointment or fire that employee. Sometimes it doesn't mean failure. In the case of Abraham and Lot, what happened? Separation actually preserves that relationship. Because if you also remember, at some point in the Bible, you later read that Lot, right, and his men were captured. Abraham went to rescue Lot, right? He went, Abraham gathered his men and they went to fight and they rescued Lot and his men. So you see that if the relationship wasn't there, people would not have gone to rescue Lot. But even though they separated, the relationship was preserved. Number two there, we see that it also reduced the conflict because Abraham said, you know what, take what you want. I'll take the other side. And Lot chose. That means there was nothing like, it was Abraham that chose first. I don't want this one. I don't like what he chose. He allowed him choose first. So what did he do? He ended, or at least he reduced that conflict. The herdsmen were no longer together. Abraham's people were separate. Lot's people were separate. There was no need for that conflict or fight. Then, of course, he also allowed both parties to grow independently. Abraham became mighty. Lot also became mighty too, because yes, even in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot was actually very, very rich. So they grew independently and everyone was comfortable in their own right. What is the lesson from this particular point? You know, sometimes distance is what keeps respect alive. Sometimes distance is what keeps respect alive. It's not you don't necessarily need all the relation. You don't necessarily need to be there. Sometimes you might need to distance yourself to keep your sanity. That's what keeps that relationship alive. Sometimes that distance might be necessary. Just step aside. Just leave that environment. Just take a break on that business. Take a sabbatical. Take a leave. Just so you can get your act right and find out that this doesn't make your situation degenerate. Now we go to the sixth point. And what does it say here? It tells us the sixth point here says, vision must guide decisions, not just opportunity. Your vision must guide your decisions because you know what you've seen already. You know what you're looking for. And that should be what guides everything you do, not just opportunity. If you know this is the direction you have decided to go and you're clear-headed about it, that this is where we are going, even when opportunity for something else comes, because you have a tunnel vision and you know where you're going, you might not need to take that opportunity. A lot of times people jump on every opportunity and they find themselves derailing from the original vision that they've set for themselves. So yes, indeed, vision must guide your decision, not just opportunity. What did Abraham do? Abraham didn't chase what looked good. Lot made the choice. Abraham did not mind. He allowed, okay, it's fine. Don't worry. You've taken that. I will take this. Abraham didn't chase what looked good. He stayed aligned with purpose. He stayed aligned with the purpose God had given to him. Lot chased what looked profitable. So sometimes what looks profitable might not be the best in the long run. As they say, the grass always looks greener. That's why they say it looks greener. Not that the grass is greener. It looks greener on the other side. When you look at it, oh, it looks better. But when you find yourself in that situation, you see that, no, it was not what I thought it was. We need to be very, very careful, and that's where wisdom comes in. What is the lesson from this point? If your decisions are only opportunity-driven, you may end up in the wrong environment. If all you look for are opportunities, oh, they are paying 1 million naira here, let me go and work there. Let me resign from here that they are paying me 600,000 and go for the one they are paying me 1 million naira. You eventually find out that when you were earning 600,000 naira, you were probably growing. Unlike when you're doing 1 million naira now, you're just there redundant and there's no career path or good path for your career. So this is just a bit of an example. There are a lot of situations where people chase opportunities at work, in business relationships, in partnerships and all that. They chase the opportunities, and of course, they forget, they eventually realize that those opportunities were not profitable in the long run, even though it looked profitable from the outside. And now we go to the seventh and the final point of this episode. Environment shapes outcomes. Environment shapes outcomes. Lot moved towards Sodom. At first it was just business, right? Later it became influence. Eventually it became entanglement. Because if you look at the story of Lot later on, a time will come when the men of Sodom will come. Lot tried to be righteous. He was keeping his family and his daughters very safe. It got to a point, Lot had visitors. Angels actually came to visit Sodom because they were going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And when they came around, the men of the city came and said they wanted to, have intercourse with these men. Homosexuals. They actually wanted to come and, abuse or molest these angels. They could only come to Lot because they knew him. He was one of them at a point. So it had become entanglement. And Lot had to literally beg them and say, you know what? Leave this men alone. Let me give you my daughters. Because, of course, the angels came in the form of men. So no one knew they were angels. It was almost like, you know what? You can have my daughters instead. Imagine that level of entanglement. Because a man chose wrong. What's the lesson from this particular point? Where you build matters as much as what you build. So it's not just about the what. It's not just about what you build. It's about where you build. Your location is very, very important in this conversation. Where you choose to build. It's not every location that is for you. Some locations are not good enough. You should not be in that place. The minute you are there, you realize that I am not meant to be here, you move. But in Lot's case, he was already entangled. He had nowhere else to go. He had made his choice already. And eventually, we saw what it cost him. So where you build matters as much as you build. When we come back, we'll look at the Nigerian reality check. All right, welcome back. So let's bring it home now as we look at our Nigerian reality. They're not business partners. They fall out after growth. Yes, you start well, especially when things are the early stage. Everyone is happy. The dream is there. The drive is there. But as the business begins to grow and expand, you begin to have a lot of conflicts because some power is coming in. You're closing deals. Some partners are becoming more powerful. They are saying things they never saw before and all of that. And things begin to happen. They begin to fall out, right? Because growth has happened. When they were there, when they were little, everybody was peaceful. And just the same way in a lot of relationships, the moment wealth starts in, wealth comes in, a man and his wife who are so fantastic together, the minute they start having some serious money, the man begins to look outside. He wants to be with every woman. The one begins to get haughty or pompous. He begins to act up towards, basically relationships start getting destroyed because some level of growth has come in. So it's very important that it's not just enough to grow. You need to know how to handle growth when it comes. We have families breaking, family businesses breaking due to control issues, because even when it's well defined, the control issues set in. It gets to a point where people begin to revolt and are not comfortable with some things going on. And of course, conflict begins. We have friends that start ventures together and it ends badly. Friends start businesses together, the businesses end up badly because growth has come in. And these are things that happen. The real issue is not really about the growth, but it's about the lack of structure, the lack of clear boundaries, and of course, the lack of honest conversations. From time to time, in every relationship, these things will happen. Conflicts will arise. It's important to immediately address them before they extend, before they expand. Have honest conversations. Make sure there is a clear structure. Make sure there are clear boundaries that are set, right? And sometimes the refusal to separate when necessary. It gets to a point when you need to separate. But as long as you keep trying to manage that relationship, things are going to get worse. to the point where it's almost, we hear things about irreconcilable differences. You don't need to wait until it gets to that point. The minute you notice that this is not going the way we planned it, have that honest conversation with each other or with one another. Do you need to separate? Do you need to break things apart? Does everybody need to go their separate ways for peace to reign? Because without peace, sometimes businesses cannot thrive as they ought to. Let's answer this deep question. So you think about this. Are you currently in a partnership that is showing signs of strain? Think about it. Are you choosing peace or are you trying to prove a point? Think about it. Have you ever chased an opportunity that later became a problem? Think about it. I mean, is it time to restructure or even separate? These are hard questions you need to answer for yourself. These are hard questions you need to answer for yourself. And in closing, Abraham teaches us something powerful. You don't have to fight to win. Sometimes you step back. Sometimes you allow space. Sometimes you trust your direction. And still, you prosper because not all growth happens together. Some growth requires separation. This is Boardroom Scriptures, where faith meets strategy and Bible stories become real life business lessons. Next episode, David and Saul, how to survive a toxic boss without losing your future.